Am I the a-hole for being truthful about why I want to move in with my dad? My mom and stepdad are foster parents, but living with foster kids is kind of awful. Nothing against them, and I really hope they're getting the help they need, but it sucks. I was forced into the tiny room, which is fine, but I also can't leave my room. I can't play music or video games. I always have to let them pick movies and TV shows. I feel like a prisoner in my own home, and I can speak up about it because then I'm being ungrateful. I know it's nowhere near what most kids experience, but I still hate it. For months, I've been begging my dad to let me move in with him. I spend all my time there, and it would just make more sense. Logically, I know I'll never be able to. He's working 70 hours a week living in a one-bedroom apartment, but it's fun to pretend. My mom and stepdad don't seem to understand where I'm coming from. I should be grateful. I have clean clothes on my back and food in my stomach. Whenever I try to explain, they never listen and point out how much better I have it. Anyway, I was talking to my cousin on Monday and mentioned staying with my dad this weekend. She asked why, and I explained that I just don't like being at home. She asked why, and if that's why I want to move in with my dad, and I said yes and explained how I felt. She eventually went home and told her mom, I guess. Yesterday, my aunt pulled up and basically demanded to know what was going on. I don't know what exactly happened, but they got into an argument and my cousin came up to help me pack some clothes for a few days. When we went down, my parents accused me of making things up, saying that I had no need to feel the way I do. My aunt didn't really give me a chance to reply before we left. I went home today to grab some stuff, and they called me selfish, saying I'd created an aggressive atmosphere which wasn't good for the foster kids. So I said, I don't care about the foster kids right now. Why do they matter more than me? My stepdad told me to get out, so I did. A whole bunch of family has blocked me in socials, and my foster sister has been posting about how I'm selfish and only care about my own feelings. My dad is now clued in, and he and my aunt are both saying that I'm not in the wrong for feeling the way I do. But no one else seems to agree. So am I the a-hole? Edit. A few people have mentioned some things I should add. I'm 14, and my mom and stepdad are currently fostering 2 sibling sets. One set of 3 girls and another set of 2 girls and 4 boys. Totaling 9 foster kids. And 3 of the kids are diagnosed with autism, as some people have asked about that. No, they don't make any profit. They do love their kids and fully intend on adopting them all. They're amazing parents. Just not to me. And no, I will not be calling their social worker or whatever. I'm not doing that to my foster siblings. I'm hoping to convince my mom that me moving out will be better because it creates more room for any emergency fosters or something. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They should be fostering if it's at the expense of another child, and regardless, you're entitled to your feelings. I understand that they're helping, but it kinda sucks. My brother and sister-in-law have fostered 4 kids at different times, but they already have 4 kids. They had to adapt, obviously, but they understood that their children were their children, that their voices were always heard, babysitting, hanging out with, etc. And it's been a very constructive atmosphere, because they also made a time to be with their own children individually at different times, so that they don't feel like a spare or something like that. Your feelings are completely valid, and your mom and stepdad are a-holes for dismissing your emotions and thoughts so openly. Do whatever you need to do to be healthy, Opie. Not an a-hole. Your feelings are valid, and they don't stop being valid just because other people might have it worse. That is a really unhealthy mindset. You deserve to feel safe, happy, and comfortable at home. If you don't experience that living at your mother's house, there's no shame in trying other living arrangements. Sometimes just have to do what's right for you. I'm kinda stuck here, but thank you. Please call the social services agency that placed the fosters with your mom and stepdad and tell them all of this. They're essentially making you a prisoner in your own home, not allowing you to do standard teenage activities, not listening to your needs or wants, and disregarding your feelings. Not the a-hole. Have you ever had the opportunity to speak to the social worker that connects with your parents? Because you should have been interviewed about your comfort level with this. You need to contact a DHS and tell them that your parents are doing foster care, and your stepdad told you to get out because you complained to your cousin about feeling uncomfortable in your own home. This is a huge red flag. Edit. Opie mentions in an edit that his mother and stepfather currently have 9 foster children in their home. That is unusual, as most states limit the maximum number of minor children in the home to 6. And given that several of those children are special needs, it is definitely a red flag. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for bringing my daughter to a water park with a friend instead of her stepsister, my ex's stepdaughter? I took my daughter 12 to a water park with her best friend last weekend. I'd planned ahead with the parents and we stayed a couple of nights. This was our first time going anywhere in 3 years, and it was the first time she got to take someone with us. But given the way things have been in the last year and how good she did at keeping up in school, I wanted to reward her. The trip came up while my daughter was with me. She goes to her dad every other week. He's married and has a stepdaughter the same age as my daughter and 2 stepsons who are 6. My daughter and her stepsister aren't close, and it bothers the hell out of my ex. He has tried to sue for more time just so they are forced to be around each other more. And my ex is always asking for more time with our daughter so she can bond better with her stepmom and step-siblings. I always say no because I never take his time with her from him or her, so he doesn't get to do it to us either. He has always asked where I can include his step-kids, and I'll be honest, I don't. For 2 reasons. I normally don't bring other kids, and because my daughter has always asked not to be forced to bring them. Her dad has brought it up around her. She said her dad suffocates her with them, and she's tired of him always trying to make them close when they just don't feel it. So when he found out her friend came with us to the water park, he was furious. What made it worse was his stepdaughter was in the car when we were doing the exchange, and she saw my daughter's friend's t-shirt that she bought there and realized where we'd gone. Apparently, she has dreamed of going for years, but never got to. Ex told me I should have made her take stepsister over a friend, and his wife called and told me I didn't need to flaunt it in front of her daughter. I said I never flaunted it, but I wasn't going to make my daughter's friend hide either. They gave my daughter hell for it while she was at her dad's. It makes me question if I'm the a-hole for not including her stepsister in this. You're definitely not the a-hole. Your ex is. It's so weird that he expects you to treat his new wife's child as family. You should encourage a friendship, yes, and be kind to her. But you owe them nothing. It's his responsibility, not yours. Especially when you're footing the bill. And it's more fun for your daughter to get to take a friend too. It is also really important to point out that even blood siblings shouldn't be forced to go to every event and share everything all the time. It breeds resentment, and there's literally no benefit to anyone when parents do it. You will find Reddit riddled with posts about siblings and step-siblings being forced to do everything together, and it breaks my heart. Not the a-hole. If the father wants the 2 girls to go to a water park together, then he and his wife can take them. And bullying your daughter over it is appalling. If nothing else, it will ensure that the 2 girls never become friends. Worse, it will probably ruin any relationship she might hope to have with her father in the future. It sounds like they want to go so that they can pressure them into spending more time together. They didn't want to go to the water park. They wanted another opportunity for them to bond. Want to add, the parents might even want to dump the kids in OP while they go on all the slides in Lazy River so they can get a break from the kids. Absolutely not, a-hole. He is alienating his own daughter for his step-kids. Guess who's gonna pick mom when she's old enough? Bingo. That is setting the stage for low contact or no contact in the future. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister her kids and step-kids aren't really mad at each other but mad at her and her husband? My sister has 2 kids. Her son is 11 and her daughter is 9. She has 3 step-kids. Her stepson is 10, stepdaughters are 9 and 7. They got married 3 years ago. And honestly, my sister and her husband messed it up pretty badly. They were long-distance dating for 4 years and lived 2,500 miles from each other. So they decided to wait for any big moves until they were getting married. 1 month before the day came, he moved in with my sister and her kids. None of the kids had met each other or their future step-parent. The day they moved in happened, it became very clear that the kids were not once super excited to go through the change and super happy for more people, regardless of how much their parents wanted it for them. My nephew and niece have told me they resent the hell out of my sister and her husband for what they did. My nephew told me he hates his mom for moving her husband and step-kids in all at once, and never giving them the opportunity to know the people or feel how they felt before it was a done deal. He even said, what if they had been jerks to them? There was no going back so close to the wedding. The kids fight each other a lot and generally don't get along. All have resisted bonding with their respective step-parent too. My sister and her husband think the kids hate each other. And especially lately it has come up a lot because the kids don't even mention having step-siblings or step-parents new people. It bothers my sister, and she has come to me several times with her frustrations but never wanting advice. Finally, the other day, she was doing the same over and over and over again because she found out her daughter had made it seem that it was just the three of them still to one of her friend's parents, and the parents seemed shocked there was a step-family involved. And she said she doesn't get why the kids hate each other so much. And it was getting hard to listen to her talk about it, especially when I had asked her to stop on more than one occasion and had cut her off before. So I decided to tell her that the kids don't actually hate each other. They're not mad at each other. They're mad at her and her husband. She was stunned and said they had no reason to be mad at them, that it must be the kids. Well, she found out by asking her kids directly that I was right, and now she's pissed. She said I had no right to interfere and judge her and make it sound like her kids hated her. Our parents told me I should have said nothing like she always wanted, but at some point, the truth had to be brought up, right? Or should I have stayed quiet? Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You told her the truth. Poor kids. If OP's sister and her husband had spoken to any type of professional counselor, therapist, or child psychologist, psychiatrist, oh, I don't know, hell, even a pediatrician, they would have been told that the way they handled this is absolutely wrong. It was pretty much guaranteed to set these poor kids up for failure. OP, you were not an a-hole at all. Your sister and her husband, though, wow, huge a-holes. Not an a-hole. Not an a-hole. She needed someone to tell her, and you voiced what you observed. She's just mad because she and her husband screwed up by not introducing their new prospective family members to each other organically. I know distance played a role, but they couldn't organize any hangout time prior to the wedding? They could have tried, and ideally that's what people would do, but they never did. Those kids never laid eyes on those new people, nor did they ever say one word to them before they were all living together. Do the kids have to share rooms? That wouldn't help either. Unfortunately, they do. Last story. Am I the a-hole for favoring my daughter's room choice over my stepson's? I, 34 female, married my current husband, 41 male, 6 years ago. I have one daughter from a previous relationship, Annie, who is 16. My husband has a son from his previous marriage, Sean, who is 19. When my husband and I got married, we bought a 4-bedroom house. We took the master bedroom, leaving 3 of the children to decide between a larger one and 2 smaller ones that made up about the same square footage as the large one. We told the kids, Annie was 10, Sean was 13, that they had 2 options of how we could handle the bedrooms. 1, they could each take a small bedroom, and the large bedroom could be turned into a mutual hangout area for them to share. Or 2, one could take the larger bedroom and the other could have both smaller ones as their own. Sean, being a 13-year-old, wanted the large bedroom as his own. He and Annie decided that he'd take the larger one and should take the smaller ones. I did ask her many times if she was sure this is what she wanted, as she's quite shy, and I suspected Sean had more so told her than asked her. But she seemed content enough with it, and it didn't really make much difference to God what in the grand scheme of things. So that's how it was. Now, Annie has one of her rooms set up as her bedroom/hangout area, and the other set up as her closet/makeup area. She loves it and is happy with the setup. Sean, however, has just graduated high school and wants to switch bedrooms with Annie because he wants to turn one of the smaller rooms into a gaming/streaming room. I presume an idea he got from Annie because she makes makeup and fashion/fashion design/sewing videos in her studio, as she calls it. He asked Annie and Annie said no. He then asked me and I said ask Annie. He said he tried, but she was being unreasonable. I told him this is what they decided, and that I wasn't going to force her to change now. He then got my husband involved, and they're both angry with me, saying I'm favoring Annie because she's my own child and treating Sean worse because he's not. Which, I've known him for half of his life and helped raise him our entire marriage. So that stings a little, even if it is true. My husband thinks that since Sean is an adult, he deserves to have the extra space. But honestly, it isn't even extra space. It's just separated, and he likes how Annie did it. I just feel like it would be very unfair to Annie to make her switch. Annie and Sean have had a pretty decent relationship, but Sean has been getting increasingly more passive-aggressive with her since this has come up. Am I the a-hole for not making Annie switch? Edit. Just to clarify, Sean wants to give Annie the big room and take the 2 small rooms as his own, and Annie isn't interested in switching at all. Not the a-hole. Your stepson was kind of greedy and took the big room. Now he is jealous because your daughter made it cool. Sean does not get to whine and get his way now. He doesn't deserve any extra for now being an adult, especially when he's acting like a whiny child. Kinda greedy? He is greedy, and he's also a boy. But I'm guessing he gets it from his father since his daddy sided with him. Not the Opie, but you will be if you don't talk to your husband about backing off. Your daughter shouldn't be punished by having to switch rooms just to please her live-in tormentor. And your husband shouldn't be enabling your stepson's behavior. Otherwise, the horrible behavior towards your daughter will just get worse. Not the a-hole. Sean seems to think it's unfair when he doesn't get what he wants. He's a 19-year-old brat whose a-hole father is enabling him. Now he's harassing his sister? Annie might need a lock for her makeup/clothes room. I'm not sure why a minor with 2 more years to go until she can move out is being expected to give up her space to an adult. Does Sean intend to live at home for the next few years? If so, Sean and his dad should put up a wall in Sean's room. Or it might be time for Sean to move out. He can do whatever he wants in his own apartment after all. You would be the a-hole if you give in to Sean's demands. He is trying to strong-arm you into getting his way, just like he probably strong-armed Annie to take the small rooms when the original offer was put out. He sounds very entitled. Not the a-hole. It's also worrying that an adult man is being passive-aggressive to a teenage girl because he didn't get his way. If this is any indication of how he treats women, he needs to be schooled now. He made his choice a few years ago, and now she said no. He needs to accept that without any manipulative behavior. Yep, I'm in no way suggesting kicking him out, but at 19, they should be discussing his path to independence and what his future looks like, not allowing him to get ever more cozy at home, especially at the expense of their daughter. In addition, I think in accusing Opie of favoring her daughter, the husband has actually revealed his own feelings, which are that he doesn't view daughter as his own and thinks his son should be prioritized. He doesn't view daughter as his own. This is a very good point that I had not really thought of. Am I the a-hole for moving out when my stepsister ruined my Father's Day gift for my dad? I, female 16, live with my mom, stepdad, and stepsister 18, and stepbrother 20. I lost my dad to cancer when I was 13 years old. We were very close, and his death was a major loss in my life. I wasn't able to keep much of his belongings because of my stepdad's insecurities and lack of sympathy and respect for me and my dad. It's sad to say that Mom moved on relatively fast. My stepsister and I share a room together. My stepbrother has a bigger room because he's the man, and as a result, me and my stepsister are always in conflict. She wants me out during the day as she uses the room as her art studio. She recently accused me of stealing her tools and convinced her dad to get a lock. So now I'm being forcefully locked out and can't get in till after a huge argument and getting Mom involved. My stepsister had an argument with her brother and ruined his gaming console when he was out. He came into the room quietly in the evening, stood by the door and asked me to bring him my stepsister's acrylic paint set. I asked if he got permission. He said yes, so I gave it to him and went back to study. At dinner, my stepsister came downstairs, yelling that her brother had access to her room and ruined her paint set. There was a lot of yelling and arguing. Stepdad asked how my stepbrother walked into the room when it was supposed to be locked. My stepbrother admitted I helped him out and brought the paint set to him. My stepsister went off on me, called me an accomplice, then ran upstairs and took the gift I prepared for my dad for Father's Day. I picked up flowers I planted from our small garden that I take care of by myself and prepared a nice wooden letter-shaped pot. Used my dad's first initial and filled it with the flowers I picked and decorated it with ribbons. It wasn't that good, but it was like a floral letter. I planned to visit his grave and put the gift there, but she damaged it to pieces. It was completely ruined. I yelled at her and kept crying. Mom and stepdad gave her harsh punishment and thought it was fixable, but I was so done. I called my uncle who came and berated my mom and stepdad. Stepdad offered to fix it and punish his stepdaughter harder, but I packed my things to go with my uncle. My mom begged me to stay, But I refused and didn't respond when she kept calling, saying she did nothing to deserve to be shunned by me and my uncle, who told the family about what happened. The family told Mom not to come visit on Father's Day and are angry with her because I moved out over this. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your mom failed you. She failed to take your feelings into account after your dad died. Failed to stand up to her husband when he failed to respect you and your dad. Failed to protect you from his daughter and her unreasonable demands. The only thing both of them did right was punishing your stepsister for destroying the Father's Day gift you made. That isn't enough to make up for all of the other crap. If you stayed, I think your stepsister would have found some way to punish you for her getting in trouble for destroying the gift you made. Stay away if you can. Yes, your mother deserves to be in trouble with the rest of the family for everything that has happened to you. Agree with one small modification. For everything that has happened to you. For allowing everything that has happened to you. Not the a-hole. She has done nothing to deserve to be shunned by me. Except ignore OP, allow stepsister to abuse OP, allow stepdad to be sexist to both of them. Stepbrother gets the bigger room because he's a man? WTF. Disregarded OP's feelings at every turn and allowed stepdad to get rid of her father's things she wanted to keep. She's right. She has done nothing, absolutely nothing she should have done to avoid this outcome, which surely would have come the day OP turned 18 anyway. Not the a-hole. Being locked out of your own room is unacceptable. While your stepfamily is awful, it's your mom who is the real a-hole. She should be advocating and standing up for you. Being locked out and not getting to keep your dad's stuff is completely on her. I'm sure she had no problem spending or getting your stepdad to agree to keep any stepsister benefit she gets for you, for your dad having passed away. I'm still trying to wrap my head around any sane mother who would allow their daughter to be locked out of their bedroom for any length of time. I've heard of removing the door or lock, still not cool, but locking them out? Wow, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry that you lost your dad, and I'm sorry that you have an insensitive mom. If you can stay with your uncle, I would. Your mom has not considered your feelings regarding your father, and the fact that she does nothing about how your stepfather and stepsister treat you is truly awful. Keep your distance. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for walking out after I opened the gift my stepson brought me for Father's Day? I, male 37, have two stepkids, Gina 11 and Brian 16. My stepdaughter is the apple of my eye. I love her to pieces. But my stepson has a difficult personality. Never does anything with us. Never lets me help him with anything and keeps his distance from me. He also never tells me about his problems or achievements, and it's been difficult trying to establish a good bond with him like my stepdaughter. My wife says that's his nature, so I should stop pressuring him. Till he recently started spending time with me, but every time he'd pull a nasty prank. Like replace my shampoo, or ruin my credit card, or ruin my tires/rear lights. This caused a rift between us, especially since my wife says those are pranks. But I was worried for my safety and got paranoid from getting in the car or going to the supermarket with a ruined credit card. So I kept my distance. Father's Day, I took my wife and my stepson and stepdaughter to her parents' house for breakfast. I received a beautiful gift from my stepdaughter and didn't expect my stepson to get me anything as always. But he did bring me a gift. It looked like a nice gift in a box and was beautifully wrapped and introduced. I was so excited and happy because all I was thinking of was not the gift itself, but the fact my stepson is finally letting me be part of his life and remembering me on Father's Day, so it meant the world to me. That was already my gift, but I couldn't wait to open it and show him my appreciation and gratitude. Well, I opened the box and saw a stinky, old sock of mine that I've lost a couple of months ago placed inside. The look in my face said it all. My stepson encouraged me to show everybody what he's got me. I didn't want to, but my father-in-law took the box and pulled out the sock. He looked confused, and my stepson started laughing hysterically. So did others. It was an absolute horrible moment. I wish I could just jump out the window and run away from embarrassment. I just got up and walked out the room silently while my stepson was laughing behind. My wife came to tell me that I overreacted massively and my stepson was just messing with me, meaning it was a prank. But he embarrassed me in front of the entire family. And frankly, I don't give a crap about the gift. But what he did felt so humiliating I almost cried. He had just said that I shouldn't have walked out like that and made it awkward, since I'm the adult and should have handled this better. I left my in-laws' house and my wife and kids are still there. My wife is upset that I left and wanted to get some time alone and a good cry, and remember my dad and try to keep my mind off what happened earlier. Am I the a-hole for this? Not the a-hole. At first, I was thinking he was being 16, but the more I read, I'm horrified. And your wife is enabling this by taking his side constantly and allowing it to go unpunished. The kid needs therapy. These are not pranks, and you shouldn't have to put up with this. Your wife needs to change the way she handled him, or I would be out the door. Not the a-hole. What prank involves damaging credit cards and cars? She needs a reality check. Seriously, Opie, your stepson is either a sociopath or a major a-hole. Your wife is an enabler. And honestly, I don't think I'd put up with this poor treatment, stepson or not. I think it's harmful to diagnose people over the internet, especially with stuff as misunderstood as cluster B disorders. The kid's an A regardless, though. Not the a-hole. And I'm sorry your wife is enabling her child to be disrespectful, mean, and a little turd. Your wife is the a-hole here. The stepson does what he is allowed to do. You need to address this with your wife, like now. And she needs to rein in her little devil. It's not cute, and it's not pranks. Unless you and your wife are on the same page, things will only get worse. Perhaps it's time to walk away. Your wife doesn't respect you at all. Your wife is laughing at this BS? Leave. Not the a-hole. However, your wife, her family, and her son are all a-holes. Not the a-hole. You left a situation that was meant to embarrass you. Your stepson is a jerk. Messing with your credit card and your car earned pranks. It's malicious vandalism. And the fact his mom doesn't say anything to him is ridiculous. If he did that stuff to anyone outside the family, he'd get rimmed out if not charged with a crime for the stuff with the car. Take your time and have a sit down with your wife and tell her you aren't overreacting. She's enabling her son to be a jerk. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I'm never sharing Father's Day again? My parents divorced when I was 2. My mom remarried when I was 5. My older brother and sister and I split time between both homes equally as little kids. It was tough. Our mom would call them both our dads, despite us never calling her husband dad or stepdad. At first, I was going to refer to him as my stepdad, but he was always a domineering prick. Our mom says that's who he is and how he expresses himself, but I don't like being treated like I'm in the army. That's his background. One time, he and my brother had a huge fight because he asked my brother why he left his bed half-made, but he did so in this really strong way. Like barking orders at someone. And my brother told him he had no right to talk to him like that, and he wasn't going to answer unless he asked in a better way. My brother got grounded for that because he actually followed through and refused to answer. For me, it was hardest when my half-siblings were born, and my mom would tell me the reason to say I have 2 dads is because he was their dad. And while I might not love him the same as mine, we had that shared connection now more than ever. But his personality makes him hard to love, honestly. He's intimidating, and not someone I ever grew to enjoy having in my life. So when I was 14, 2 years ago, I chose to stay with my dad all the time, and it caused some fights, but never more than now. My mom always insisted on sharing Father's Day between our dad and her husband. She even gave up some of Mother's Day to get it. None of us, me or my siblings, ever wanted it, and neither did our dad. But the judge said seeing as she was willing to share Mother's Day, he ordered it. At least until it was changed when I went to live with my dad. That year we were fighting, so Father's Day wasn't pushed. But last year it was. And this year, yeah. So I told my mom I'm not splitting it anymore. That I'm celebrating with the only father I have. And that's how I will celebrate it going forward. She was so pissed. She told me I was being ungrateful and mean-spirited to a man who loves me as his own, and that all 3 step-kids doing this is a big middle finger to all step-parents, and how most kids would be grateful for a man like him. I told her that didn't change things for me. She's even trying to get my dad to send me over in the afternoon. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Tell her that the fact that all 3 step-kids have rejected him shows that he's the common denominator and where the problem lies. Not the a-hole. Yeah, If a few people you meet are a-holes, it's probably a them problem. If everyone you meet is an a-hole, it's probably a you problem. Not an a-hole. People tend to get to treat my kids the way they deserve, but let's dig into this one in more depth. He was always a domineering prick. Our mom says that's who he is and how he expresses himself, but I don't like being treated like I'm in the army. That's his background. We get so many posts on the sub where various family or friends defend a-holes because that's just how they are. No, how they are is an a-hole, and that's not okay. Let's dig in further. Being in the army doesn't make you act like an a-hole, but the service do tend to attract small people who hide behind rank to act big. No one became an a-hole by joining the army. The army is just a friendlier place for a-holes. I was in the Navy, I understand this quite well. Bob Ross was a master sergeant in the Air Force. Proof that your background doesn't define you. This is a big middle finger to all step-parents, and how most kids would be grateful for men like him. Nope, this is a big middle finger to a man who needs to be told so. No kid needs an a-hole in their life, and your siblings said you came to the right conclusion. Frankly, your stepdad sounds like someone who wants to die alone. I would get smacked upside the head as a kid for doing big swipes to clean a counter instead of tiny clockwise circles to clean. Army stepdad would always reprimand us for not cleaning the army way. And even as kids, we were like, dude, we weren't in the army. Not today, Hall. You are 16 now, so old enough to decide who you want to stay with. Not today, Hall. He may love you like his own, but acting like a drill sergeant to his kids is the wrong way to show it. He's driven you and your siblings away, and your mom needs to accept it. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not being interested in being an aunt to and spending money on my brother's stepdaughter that I barely know and barely see? My brother Tyler is divorced, who had a daughter Ella, 7, and a son Noah, 3, with his ex-wife. A few months after separating last year, he got together with Sarah, who has a 5-year-old daughter named Olivia. Tyler has embraced Olivia as his own, which he should, given that Olivia spends about 80% of her time with him, but is starting to get a bit upset that I'm not doing the same. I live interstate for work, and in February used a couple of vacation days and flew 2 hours each way for Ella's birthday party. I plan to do the same for Noah's birthday in September. But Tyler and Sarah are upset. I am not prepared to do that in July for Olivia's 6th birthday. I'm happy to use a couple of vacation days and spend money for my own niece or nephew, but not really for what is really a random child to me. I've only met Olivia twice, and that was at Ella's party. I stayed at my parents' house while in town, and when we all went out for dinner the next night before I went home. Olivia doesn't know who I am. He also got upset I didn't want to buy a big present for Olivia because I bought Christmas presents for Ella and Noah but not Olivia. I made sure to wait until Olivia had gone to her dad's before giving them to the kids. I have nothing against Olivia. She's an innocent child. I'll obviously be polite to her when she's around, and I give Ella and Noah their presents privately. But at the end of the day, Olivia is not my niece, and I don't feel anything for her. I haven't bonded with her since she was a baby like I did with Ella and Noah, and I've only met her twice in passing. I don't FaceTime her 3 times a week like I do Ella and Noah. She doesn't come with my parents to visit me 3 times a year like Ella and Noah do. Olivia has her own other side of the family like Ella and Noah have me and my parents. And I think that while Tyler signed up to treat Olivia as his own when he made a choice to get into a relationship with Sarah, he didn't sign me and my money up for that. I'm not really a kid person. I love my niece and nephew because they are mine, but just don't feel anything for Olivia because she's basically a stranger to me. I'm not really interested in spending money and using vacation leave in what is basically a random kid to me. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. If Tyler and Sarah split up, there's no reason to see Olivia again. But Ella and Noah will always be your blood. But if the relationship survives, are you seriously saying this is how you are going to keep treating her? And what if they had a kid together? Will you still leave Olivia out? You're the adult. You are going to have to make more of an effort. Not the a-hole for not wanting to use vacation days and spend your money flying interstate to go to the birthday party of a child you barely know. But I do think the way you talk about her like she's an unwelcome addition to the family is kind of horrible. Info. How long has your brother been living with his girlfriend? Since January. He separated from his ex-wife in November. That's it? I'd be the exact same. Wouldn't waste my time being an aunt, and I would never give up my holiday time for them. First story is titled, Update. Am I the a-hole for moving after winning full custody of my sons? Original story. My wife and I got a divorce last year. Our relationship failed after she was charged with felony, credit card fraud, and ended up pleading guilty to a lesser charge. She had been a stay-at-home mom to our 2 sons, 5 and 3, and had taken credit cards out in my mom's name to pay for God knows what. She shattered my trust. I work full-time and make a decent living, but nothing extravagant. I had no clue what my wife was doing, until cops showed at my door with a warrant and took my wife away in cuffs and took 2 laptops as evidence. When I got the full story, I filed for divorce immediately. Aside from being a criminal, she was a good mom. She tried to justify what she did by saying she was just doing what was best for our kids, which I felt was a total BS, given that she never mentioned wanting for anything. And any time she asked to spend on something, I almost always said yes. I hired a good lawyer and asked for full custody of my kids. My ex begged me not to do that, saying she needed her kids. But she was still looking at up to a year in jail, and nothing her lawyer said could sway the judge to grant her anything more than supervised visitation. She ended up doing 90 days in jail, paying some fines and restitution, but I've allowed her to see our sons almost every time she asks. The last year has been total hell, but we've made it work. A few months ago, I was offered a much more lucrative position a few states away. I talked with my lawyer about what it would mean if I moved and what the process was. He said that since I have full custody, I have to file a petition with the court to move. So, I told my wife what I wanted to do, and she exploded. She claimed I was stealing her kids from her, that she's made a lot of strides to get herself to a better place, and that she would fight me tooth and nail for her kids. Well, I filed the petition, got the go-ahead from the courts, and accepted the job. When the judge gave his ruling, my wife burst into tears and began sobbing. It was heartbreaking. I know in my head that I'm doing the right thing for my sons. They're young enough that a move like this won't be too traumatic, but I also feel like their lives have already been completely overturned, and I'm just adding more to that. As for my wife, she's a wreck. She's been begging me to reconsider the move, trying everything from guilt trips, manipulation, bargaining. It's like she's going through the stages of grief. But from my point of view, she did this to herself. She lied and broke the law. I have very little sympathy for her. I know at some point, she will probably try to file for partial custody, and I'm prepared for that. For now, I'm just trying to do what's best for me and my sons. Does that make me an a-hole? Now, for more info and comments before we read the update. This is tough. The divorce and getting full custody? Fully deserved. Not the a-hole on that account. Moving to another part of the country where she'll have no contact with them? I'm not so sold on this. I think that you're still in pain and resent her, and rightfully so. But I'm not sure this is the best you can do regarding your children's relationship with their mother. Does she have any possibility of getting a job? Of moving? Or is she a financial mess as well? And what are her living conditions like now? Have you gone to therapy? Let me be clear. She did what she did, and she's been held accountable for it. You've got a right to move from a legal perspective. But moving, when you know she can't do the same, will massively screw her relationship with your children, and it will only lead to more anger, resentment, and pain. Edit based on further comments from Opie. Not the a-hole on all accounts. As has been pointed out, he's got a financial responsibility over his kids now, and his ex isn't paying child support. All I suggest is that the relationship between mother and kids still be allowed, as far as the law is involved/allowing, with FaceTime or whatever means are possible, because further isolation won't be healthy for the kids either, in my opinion. I don't know her full financial situation. I know she's working a couple part-time jobs and has a small 2-bedroom apartment. Whether or not she could move, I don't know. She's under probation, so she'd need to apply to move anyway. My new job pays over twice what my previous did. It's a huge opportunity for me to provide a better life for my sons. I don't want to sit around here and wait for my ex to get her stuff together. I understand, if you're moving, and to me it sounds like you've already made up your mind. I know it would be painful or not very easy, but you've got to make an effort for your kids to have their mother in their life. I don't mean any form of financial assistance. I mean, make sure they can FaceTime or talk on the phone whenever they can, as long as it doesn't interrupt their school schedule, obviously. You don't have to sit around until she gets her stuff together. Just try not to add obstacles. I know many petty parents who would make it impossible to schedule calls or whatever. Not saying you're this kind of dad, just offering it as a suggestion to avoid a further strain, which yes, was caused by her initially. I do not intend on isolating my sons from their mother or preventing her from seeing them. But I also will not allow anything other than court-approved, supervised visits. FaceTime and all that stuff, I will work with her to make sure she gets to talk with them. But there will be no weekends at mom's place until the court gives the okay. I'm not saying I believe she will try to run away with my kids, but I also never believed she would defraud my mother of $30,000. Y'all know this begging for a gender's reverse situation. Holy crap, people are actually calling him an a-hole. Opie is not the a-hole. Please, all you moms out there need to let go of your biases. I'm a mom, and all the YTAs sicken me. The mom didn't make a mistake or a one-time bad decision. She's not a good mom. She knowingly, ongoingly committed a major crime against her own mother-in-law. A crime that directly affected her kids. Her willingness to do this, with no remorse, shows her character. A good mom doesn't choose clothes, makeup, toys over her children. They just don't. Now for Opie's little edit. Thank you to everyone who commented, even the ones who called me a heartless a-hole for taking my sons away from their mother. This post has given me a lot of perspective, and I appreciate that. A couple of things I want to clear up that I keep getting asked about that I wasn't able to include in my original post. 1. The area my sons and I live in is a smaller community. Not everyone knows everyone small, but close. The crime my ex committed was news here. It was in the paper. People know about it. I get weird looks when I'm out in public. People have stopped inviting my sons to birthday parties. I don't want my sons to be bullied and teased in school about their mother being a criminal. 2. I am not going to permanently alienate my sons from their mother. I will make sure they are able to talk and FaceTime with her whenever they want. I will be the one who makes the drive back in order for them to see her, until she is able to make arrangements to allow her to do so. I will continue to work with my ex to make sure she is included in things like birthdays and holidays. 3. I know my sons and I will all need therapy from this. There is not good mental health help available where my previous job is. My new job offers on-site childcare, and I will have access to counseling and therapy for myself and my sons that we would not have access to without moving. The schools near my new job are head and shoulders above the ones near my previous job. 4. If my ex gets her life back on track and is able to move closer to us, I'm all for it. If she does the things she needs to do in order to petition for shared custody, I don't intend on fighting her for that. But until she does that, I will not allow her anything more than the supervised visits ruled by the court. I will also not ask for any of the court-ordered child support. We won't need it. 5. To all the people who screamed, "But she's their mother." Yes, and she always will be. And I remind my sons daily that their mom loves them very much, and that she wishes she can be with them like before. I am angry and resentful of my wife, but I work very, very hard to not let any of those feelings impact my sons and their relationship with their mom. Now for the update. I got a lot of people asking for an update on the situation, and since a few things have changed, I figured I would go for it. I did end up taking the new job and moved with my sons. We have been settling into our new lives quite nicely over the last month, and things have been going really well. My sons love the new house. They have made friends with some other kids their age in the neighborhood. My job has been going really well, and I really couldn't have hoped for things to go better than they have. I got both of my sons into a great therapy program, and the three of us have also been doing counseling sessions together. My boys have been adjusting amazingly well, and I'm so happy and proud of how they've handled this. We've also made 2 trips back to see their mother, since she is still in the process of figuring out what she will be allowed to do in relation to her probation. We've also been doing many video calls a week with her. My sons still don't understand why their mom isn't here with us, but they do seem to grasp that this is going to be their new normal. In comparison with how well myself and my sons are adjusting, my ex is the complete opposite. She is still very angry with me and thinks I'm a complete a-hole. She's frustrated with the process of going through the courts to be allowed to move. She's frustrated that I'm not willing to drive our sons back to see her as often as she'd like. She feels she's being marginalized in their lives and that I am pulling them away from her. When she was complaining about all of this during our last visit, I reminded her that all of those things are consequences of her own actions. and she blew up at me by saying I am kicking her when she's already down, and I didn't need to take her sons away from her. I told her how well our sons are doing and how happy they are, and she should be proud of how strong and resilient they've been. She then started begging me to please move back so that she can be closer, because she's not sure the courts will allow her to move and the process is taking too long. I told her that wasn't going to happen, but if there is anything I can do with the court process, that I would be willing to help if I can. I reminded her that I haven't said anything about her not paying the court-ordered child support, but that our boys seem to be in a much better place already, and I'm not going to take that away from them. Every time we have a video call with her, as soon as she says goodbye to our sons, she starts asking me to consider moving back home. I tell her every time that it is not happening. I'm not a robot, and I do feel bad to see her so desperate and distraught. But when I look at my sons playing and laughing with their new friends, I know I've done the right thing no matter the cost to my ex. Now, for some closing comments before we move on to the next story. I reminded her that I haven't said anything about her not paying the court-ordered child support. How did she end up on the hook for paying child support given her status? It's a token amount based on her income. With my higher salary, I don't need her help to provide for our kids, but she hasn't made an effort to pay anything yet either. She's going to blame you when they take her tax refund. Lol. She already blames me for a lot of things. We'll just add that one to the list. Just want to piggyback and say, if she's not making an effort to pay child support in any way, likely no court would give her partial custody anyways. She's not showing she can support kids in any minimal capacity. Also, my father raised my sister and I alone, but courts ruled for 50-50 custody because you can't separate kids from their mother, BS. Both moms and dads can be incapable of being a parent. Her fraud history and subsequent emotional breakdown, as it seems, definitely puts her in the category of not being responsible enough for custody's sake. Keep up the good work. You sound like a great father. Did you check the kids' credit? Yes, many times over. They're clean. I would at least every 6 months, if she has their SS numbers. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my parents their son back? When I, 26 male, was 20 years old, my mom and dad had a 1-year-old son, Eddie. They were struggling in their marriage and had been for years. They thought having another baby would magically fix things, but they were wrong, as it just caused more problems and strained their finances. They were in over their heads and decided to give Eddie up for adoption. I begged them not to, but they had made up their minds. Social workers asked other family members if anyone would like to take Eddie. Both my older brothers refused, and my grandparents were too old, so I took my brother in. This royally annoyed my parents, and I was threatened with disownment, but I didn't care, as I already had a place of my own with an ex at the time. My folks lost their paternal rights, and I legally adopted my brother, and I love him so much and was proud to be his daddy. My brothers didn't approve of me adopting him, but I didn't care, as they had never met him, even when he was still with my parents. My grandparents helped me out a lot and were great. Unfortunately, they have both passed since then and left me what money they had left to raise my bro. My folks and siblings were pissed, but my aunt and uncles didn't care and thought it was best. At family events over the years, my folks would be uncomfortable when I'd show up with Eddie. But within the last year, they had seemed to warm up a tad, and I figured they themselves wanted to act more like grandparents, as he is legally my son. During the last few months, however, I've noticed my parents and brothers try and talk to Eddie on their own about if he knows who his mommy and daddy is. He says I'm daddy, and usually I walk in and scold them before the conversation can go much further than that. I've yet to tell him the truth, and I know I have to one day, but I don't think now is the right time. And even if it was, I should be the one to tell him. The other day, I caught my mom trying to talk to Eddie about this again when she was visiting me, Ed, and my current partner. I asked my best friend to take Eddie out for a bit, where me and my mom got into an argument. She thinks I'm being a terrible parent, and that it's time she and my dad take Eddie back. I told her that there is no way I'm letting that happen, so I kicked her out. Now, my parents are threatening to sue for custody, and my brothers agree, while aunts and uncles say they support me no matter what. So, am I the a-hole? Now, for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He's legally your son, and you're the best for him. I would start reconsidering having your parents over. Also, start considering, Maybe consulting with professionals, the best way to handle questions he might start to ask within the next few years, either because your parents say something or in general. This. Maybe talk to a therapist or child psychologist on how it's best to cover this subject. From the post, he's around 7. Seems like someone is going to tell him sooner rather than later, and it's best coming from you, I assume. Might be worth having some advice on how to navigate this. As for my judgment on this, I have no doubt you are his daddy, and what is best for him then, now, and in the future. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Why are these people still in your life? Your son is not an accessory that they can pick up and drop off whenever they feel like it. The only way they would be worthy of taking in Eddie would be if they loved him and cared about his best interest. But if they loved him and cared about his best interest, then they wouldn't be trying to rip him away from the only father he has ever known. That would be so unbelievably confusing for him. Plus, let's face it, it probably wouldn't stick. Also, if they were good parents, they wouldn't be trying to do this to you, their son. You did something so incredibly mature and caring 6 years ago. I don't know why your brothers also suck so much, but clearly you should keep your aunts and uncles and ditch the rest of them. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's about time we take our son back as soon as the grandparents died and left the inheritance to the kid they abandoned. They don't want the kid, they want the kid's piggy bank. Edit. Whoa, I expected a few replies at least, not this many. I have decided that I'm going to tell him tomorrow. Have a me and him day and explain it the best I can and answer what I can. Edit 2. Okay, so I told him. It's half term here in the UK, so he didn't have school. Around lunchtime, I took him to get his favorite food. We then went for a walk in the park talking about family and stuff. Eventually, we sat down, and I told him about how I adopted him, but I'm still daddy, and that I still loved him. But then I explained how I came to look after him. It's fair to say he didn't understand some things, and has been a bit quieter than usual. But he cuddled up to me while I was watching a film I loved when I was a kid, and said, "I love you, Daddy," when I put him to bed. I'm feeling better, and I hope he does too. To say it's been an emotional day is an understatement.